Welcome to another Bandology interview. Bandology is a Canadian nonprofit dedicated to more music for more kids via education, collaboration, and community.
Hi everyone, my name is Nalco and I'm the Music and Performance Coordinator at Bandology. Today I'm here with Dr. Alexander Cannon, or Al, who is a conductor, a trumpet player, and music educator. He's also the new artistic director of the Kawartha Youth Orchestra. Al is also the resident conductor and youth orchestra music director of the Guelph Symphony Orchestra. How are you doing today, Al?
I am very well. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure, truly. Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Kawartha Youth Orchestra and what you'll be doing as the artistic director?
I am the new artistic director for the Kawartha Youth Orchestra. What that entails is I lead the senior orchestra, and I also head up a new program as one of the lead instructors. It's called Upbeat Downtown, and it's modeled after the El Sistema programs. It's intended to allow and invite in youth who would not normally have access to music education. So we're providing that for the first time starting this September.
Wow, that's so exciting. I can't wait to hear more about the Upbeat program that you have planned for this year.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a bit about your background in music and what maybe influenced you to pursue music as a career?
Sure, absolutely. So my primary background is I'm a trumpet player. I really did that for most of my years. That's what my training is in for my degrees. And I kind of switched into and fell into conducting in the last 5 or 6 years. And obviously now I'm leading these organizations from the helm. I think something really important to note is to be a professional musician these days means that you just try to do as much as you can well. That the more diverse you are in what you do, the better it is that you're going to be able to survive in this industry. But also too, it makes you a better musician to continue to outreach, to try new instruments, to sing if you've only been an instrumentalist, all of those things. So I try to my hand at composition as often as I can. I try to do all those things as much as I possibly have time for. And also I was very lucky to come from a background where both my parents were musicians. They both were trained in university. They both have music degrees. They did not pursue professional, being a professional musician. But coming from an environment where the concept of being artistic, of being creative, working hard in an industry, toward an industry where you perhaps did not have a guaranteed job ahead of you, I was still encouraged to do this because they thought it was important. And I think that encouragement is largely why I am indeed in the roles I'm in today. I appreciate that, their encouragement very much, but also just, it's a lot of luck. It's very lucky to be raised in a family like that.
Yeah, so you were surrounded by music from a young age, I'd imagine. And that
Yes.
probably contributed a lot to maybe the direction that you've taken in your music career.
Absolutely right.
So do you have any major influences or mentors that you've looked up to throughout your career?
I definitely have. I mean, I've had a smattering of excellent teachers. Also lucky, very, very lucky. I have to say, probably my first trumpet teacher when I was still in high school. His name is Michael Miller, and he plays now with the Cleveland Symphony. But Mike, the foundation he set for me in understanding so much about music, and also encouraging me to not be so hard on myself. That he was the first person to really call out what is so common in professional musicians, our perfectionism. He really called out my perfectionism and made sure that I started to understand that you're always working hard, but you're never going to be quite so hard on yourself that you can't move forward. So I'm forever grateful for that teaching from him, and also just the influence of a really fine human being. That's been wonderful. The other thing I would absolutely need to mention is there's a man named Ed Carroll who is just also a trumpet player, very creative person who leads up the brass department at California Institute of the Arts, and also leads what's called it's now the Center for Advanced Musical Studies in Chosen Vale, which is held in New Hampshire every summer. And it's kind of this mecca that he's created for fantastic brass artists to come to, and students annually. And it's the creative aspect that has been made so important to me through his influence, and that, you know, playing in an orchestra is not the be all and end all, and that new music is so important. I really learned that lesson from him and his colleagues.
Yeah, new music is definitely something that's becoming a bit more popular these days. And I think it's really great that we get to celebrate the work of composers that are still living and actually get to experience that firsthand.
Right. I feel like we're finally kind of moving over the road bump of it becoming not just accepted, but expected of professional music groups. And the beauty of this to me is that we are moving away from the term classical music. That term really needs to be redefined and maybe thrown out. I mean, you know, we're in an era, fortunately. I mean, there's so much going on in the world. There's so much change happening, obviously, the last 2 years, that if we don't have an example of what's going, not an example, but a reflection of what's going on now in our art, then what is the value of the art, right? So it's wonderful to revisit these great pieces. I mean, here I am, I'm an orchestra conductor for a youth symphony, but we're being very cognizant of what music ensemble means right now. And so absolutely, I agree with you. You know, the more new music we do, the better.
Yeah. So do you have any career highlights or moments that have been memorable to you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I'm trying to think. You know, I think you know, it's interesting because often we would say, "Oh, I got to do this event" or something like that. For what I tend to remember are specific moments in rehearsals, or you know, something like that. So I was I was lucky to attend the Pierre Monteau School years and years ago. The Pierre Monteau School it's kind of this building in the middle of the woods in Maine. And the students all live out there for 6 weeks in the summer in these little cabins that surround the main building where the rehearsals are held. And you just cover so much repertoire. And I look back now, that was at least 10 years ago, maybe it's coming up on 15 for me. And I look back now and I just think of those moments in there where I had so many realizations about music in those rehearsals, and just the vast amount of time in a summer like that to absorb and really reflect on what music means, on you know, what interpretation means. That if you have one shot to play through something, how are you going to do it? And it really needs to be analyzed and done well, right? So it's interesting that that's actually what just came to mind. Of course, there are little things here and there about giving performances and things like that, but the moments I think to be proud of for any artist are the moments where you realize you grew. And so that's, for me, these moments such as that when I was at the Pierre Monteau School.
I think summer programs are often a really great opportunity for students to really dig deep in their art and spend a lot of time focusing on music when, you know, during the school year, it might be a bit harder to do something like that. So it's
Absolutely.
really great, for sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
So coming from your background as a trumpet player, what made you want to go into conducting?
Well, I'll say this first, that I think a lot of trumpet players were just so, aggressive. There's a lot of trumpet players that end up doing conducting, but I was interested in it from an early age. And I mean, my concept of what conducting means is, I would say, pretty atypical. To me, it's you need somebody when there's so many people trying to bring their ideas together. But in a way, that's all it should be. So I always was interested in being a person who was helping a group amalgamate, come together. But I'm not really particularly personally interested in I guess what a standard orchestral conductor would do, where they kind of get up and I mean, there's still a really important leadership going on there. Um, but I just for me, I mean, the concept of conducting is something I would like to change in terms of music education. That really you're there to assist. And so my idea of that is really that you're simply always teaching, and that you're teaching, perhaps a professional group, you're teaching brand new beginning students, you're just always teaching. So for me, that kind of switch for conducting that's happened is really about music education. It really has just shown in my life in that way. It's really about music education for me.
Yeah, I guess that's probably something a lot of people don't really think about when they think about a conductor, is all the work that goes on in rehearsals and behind the scenes of a performance that a conductor has to take care of.
I think the most overlooked or misunderstood thing is the amount of time that study, looking at music and taking the time to understand it from every angle that you possibly can. That analyzation and learning and reading about the history, making sure you understand the structure behind the music, that's the real job of the conductor, so that you can help the people around you, your colleagues.
That's so interesting to get to know what a conductor gets to do, because not every musician obviously becomes a conductor. So it's really interesting to learn about that.
Sure.
So what will your orchestra look like this season? I'm sure orchestras have changed a lot during COVID. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe what the Kawartha Youth Orchestra plans to do for the fall?
Sure. So as of today, the KYO has received the thumbs up from Peterborough Health to proceed with in-person rehearsals. Of course, just like everybody in the world, we're going, what's going to happen in the next 2-3 months? So we're proceeding with some caution. What it looks like for us is we will be in person, but of course, every instrumentalist who can wear a mask will definitely be wearing a mask. All staff will be wearing a mask. And for us, what it definitely requires too is that we are 50% or lower than capacity of the building we're in. So we really can spread out. We're very lucky we have a space to indeed do that. So for KYO, I feel like we are in possibly I'm not entirely sure, but probably a better position than a lot of organizations. I think we're very lucky that it's going to be in Peterborough, and Peterborough is an area where the cases have been very low, so public health is rather optimistic. I know a lot of places are still very hesitant to be back in person at all. And I really do think it remains to be seen, for the most part, throughout the country, throughout the world, how people are going to cope, because it's not over. The pandemic is still not over.
Yeah, for sure. But that's really wonderful that you guys have a space to be distanced and still be able to do things, hopefully in person, if conditions allow.
Yes, thank you. We have our fingers crossed, right?
So you mentioned the Upbeat downtown music program earlier. Can you tell us a bit more about the program and what that's going to be doing this year?
Absolutely, sure. So I'm very excited to be part of this. What has occurred that's wonderful is, again, before my time at the KYO, the board applied for and received an Ontario Trillium grant, a GROW grant. So it's essentially funding for 3 years to help get a permanent program started. And as I mentioned, it is really, the concept is based around what's called El Sistema. And it's actually a, right, I'm certain you've heard of it, but perhaps for anybody watching this who has not, it's a program that originated in Venezuela, and basically was a social program that quite literally was intended to get kids off the streets into a safe environment. And the structure that the government chose, the government through influence of some particularly artistic people, was basically that of a symphony orchestra. And so it became, I think the number that I recall hearing is, at its peak, it had 500,000, something like 500,000 students enrolled in that in Venezuela. So this kind of phenomenon has spread worldwide as, hey, this is a good model to help people who need help. So we modeled our program after some other Sistema groups in Canada, and that have been very successful. And so we're really excited to start that. It entails that when the kids are there, that they are ensured that they're given healthy food. That's part of it. The first thing in the door is they're given a healthy snack. There's always going to be some time that we're calling centering time, but it's essentially a moment to sit in a circle, and it's going to be all kinds of things. It's going to be sharing, how was your day today? How are you guys feeling? Are you feeling low today? Did you have a great day? Why? Well, what did you draw at school? Did you get to draw anything? I mean, we're really going to focus on just how they are. And then we do go into music education. For this first year, we're having our students start on violin. It's usually very typical in Sistema groups, and also just makes classroom teaching for music education very feasible. So we are having the kids start on violin, and then they will also have what we're calling with me music fundamentals, which is essentially early music theory, but it will be a lot of games. It's intended to encourage thought and, again, creativity, not just sit down and learn how to draw a treble clef on a staff. That's much too boring. So the hope of all of this, so the ultimate goal is to create a safe place and to create community among all the families that will have their children there enrolled with us. So I am really looking forward to being part of this, being part of that community.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I actually volunteered at a Sistema program a long, long time ago, but it's really amazing to see the changes in the kids as they participate in the program, and they learn new skills, and they also learn new social skills.
Right. Good for you. That's great to hear. I mean, the more people involved, right, the better. That's really nice to hear.
So why is music education important to you?
Well, that's a big question. Music education, to me, represents the very basic fundamental right to be creative. And I really mean that when I say fundamental right, a human right. Arts, the arts, not just music, they are often, absent from our lives. They're the first things to get cut when funding is tight. And we all know this, and everybody says, oh, we wish it couldn't be this way. But I think what music education really means to me is it's a part of healthcare. It's a part of mental health. It's a part of taking care of humanity. And there's a famous quote attributed to Winston Churchill. I'm not sure if he actually said this or not. It's attributed to him. They were indeed looking at their budget saying, well, these are the things that are going to have to go so we can assist the war effort. And it was everything artistic that you could think of, and for the UK. And he said, well, if we're cutting all of these things, then what are we fighting for? And it's just such, I mean, again, whether it was true or not that he actually said it, I'm not sure, but it is an absolutely just wonderful example of exactly how we should feel, that this is what's human, this is the things that make us human, is the art, doing, from the earliest person living in a cave and sketching the hand, or putting their handprint on the cave wall. Like, this is so fundamental to who we are. And so anyway, the access to music education, to me, if we don't provide this, it's like not providing food, it's not providing air, it's not providing, we think of math and science, as, oh, they're so fundamental. Well, this is maybe more fundamental. What are we if we don't have the arts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think programs like Sistema-based programs and youth orchestra programs, they really provide an opportunity for youth to develop an appreciation for the arts, and for also their parents and the greater community to have a better relationship with the arts as well.
Thank you for saying that. That's it, right? It's everybody.
Yeah, and do you have any advice for like aspiring musicians, or aspiring musicians who want to be conductors, maybe?
Absolutely, sure. So, well, I'll address the conductor thing first. Well, there are so many opportunities and programs right now out there for somebody wishing to really follow a track of learning how to be specifically a conductor. I mean, whether it's band conductor, choir conductor, orchestra conductor, the tables are finally turning, where there are more opportunities for women, especially. And this is, boy, it's a long time coming. So that is I'd say in the last even 3 years, just before the pandemic, I really started to see it turn around, where you see fellowships and things like that that are specifically for women. And it needs to happen, because white male, we've had the advantage forever. So being able to really change this and provide access to everyone to this education, if they seek it, is a really wonderful thing. So there are, there's great things out there now available. I think that, there's this message that still goes out to so many young people who are interested in the arts and music, that it's something you do through high school and then you have to put it away, right? And I mean, in my, my view of the world, Al Cannon's utopia, everybody's playing in some kind of music ensemble. Everybody, every single person. Why not? And what that also requires is professional musicians to be more accepting of the concept of an amateur musician, and that expression is extremely important through music. And that doesn't mean that it's always correct, right? So there's a pretty big divide in some places, not in all places, not in all geographies, between kind of the concept of a professional musician and amateur and learning musicians, student musicians. I would love to see that all come together. And so what I would encourage a young person to do is, if you love doing this, find a way to do it, period. If you love playing your instrument, keep playing. Make it a part of your plan for the future. If I had, one of that saying, if I had a dime or a dollar for every time a parent of someone I've taught has said to me, I sure wish I hadn't hung up my instrument when I graduated high school, I'd be a millionaire. It's a lot of people who really truly have deep regret about it. So I would just love to see that culture shift, where we go, you learn this as a young person and you keep going, because it serves you your whole life, and you end up serving your community your whole life because you're playing.
Yeah, that's definitely a great way to think about it. And it would definitely be nice to have more appreciation for playing music as well in the community.
Right. Yes.
So do you have any exciting or new upcoming plans?
I think something that I'm really looking forward to, with our senior youth orchestra, we have kind of a new program where for our sectionals, we're going to be bringing in individual instrument teachers. And that will happen, I believe it's a total of 6 times throughout a year, which is pretty good. Oftentimes programs will have sectionals, but it's not quite so interactive. So I'm just really pleased that we've been able to pull this together to do this for our students. And additionally, we're going to try kind of a pilot, an experiment where our clinicians on one specific day, it's October 24th, are going to come in and then form chamber music groups that will also perform that evening. So we thought it was very important that our young musicians see the people who are instructing them actually perform, actually, participate in music. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. Of course, in the coming year, there are regular concerts. We're talking about some alliances with nearby universities, with colleges. So I think, coming out of the pandemic, whenever that finally may be over, it's just so nice to be able to, everybody's eager to get back and really do profound things with their organizations, things that we're ready to hit the ground running. It's like all this pent up energy during the pandemic, and we're ready to go. So there's a lot going to be going on in the coming years for the KYO, that is for sure.
That's fantastic to hear. And I think it'll definitely be inspiring for your students to actually see their instructors performing. Because I know personally for me, like, it was always definitely a really special moment to actually see your teacher perform. So that'll be really exciting.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So before we finish off our interview, I'm going to ask you some fast 5 questions. These are like rapid fire style questions. So the first question is your favorite movie soundtrack.
Favorite movie soundtrack would have to be Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is an older movie from the 70s, maybe early 80s. One of the earlier scores of John Williams. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, now with younger folks have never heard of it, but it's also a great movie.
I have never watched that movie, so I'll have to watch it sometime. Second question is an instrument you wish you played.
Cello, hands down, cello.
Oh,
Cello
that's
has the
actually
widest range. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the colors that you can get are just so amazing. So if I had not been a brass player, I would have gone for cello.
So what's your favorite concert that you attended?
This one, I have to really think about it. Probably the one that pops in my head was actually, well, it's, I guess, rather recent. Just a few years ago, I was in Amsterdam and attended a concert at the Conductor. And it was the Bergen Symphony playing Sibelius' Fifth Symphony, which is it's my favorite piece of music. And just that particular setting and that particular day, there was something about that music and the way that orchestra executed it was extremely visceral. So it's a very imprinted memory. I fondly think back to that very often.
Sibelius has some really amazing orchestral works, and I'm sure after the pandemic, it'll be really great when we can go to concerts again.
Yes, and hear this live. You're absolutely right.
So who's your favorite artist?
I'm going to interpret that as an architect, as opposed to a musician artist. Frank Gehry, who is responsible for designing all kinds. He was responsible for he designed the Walt Disney Hall in downtown LA. But the reason I admire Gehry is it has to do with what I was speaking about earlier. His concept of now and reflecting now is so important that I think any artist of any background, music, dance, whatever it may be, his message about making sure that we're creating new things is very impactful for me. So Frank Gehry.
Wow, that's really interesting. So the last question is, what's your hidden talent?
Oh boy. Okay. I think because I'm kind of a goofy person here, I think what I'm going to share is I've got this weird trick that I've been able, I've learned it in college, where I can shoot water, about 6 feet from between my front two teeth. I don't know why that's in there, but it's a thing. So that's what
That's
I've
very
got.
unique. Well, that's very cool.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Al. It was so great to hear all about your work with the Kawartha Youth Orchestra and what you'll be doing with the Upbeat program.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to speak with you, and it's so appreciated to share a passion for music. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard, you can learn more about our organization at bandology.ca, which features information about music education, advocacy and research, and our Play a Gig and Bandcamp programs. Follow us on social media for more videos, performance, and interviews on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.